Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of FLINT Talks. I'm really excited to have a couple more voices on the episode today, talking about a topic that is probably very important to a lot of our audience right now. So, before we jump in, I would like to get both lovely ladies on the podcast with me today to introduce themselves. And Nadine, do we want to start with you?
Yeah, of course. So, hi, my name is Nadine Young. Um, bit about me is I am a functional consultant at a Microsoft partner company called Olympic 33. I'm also a part-time student, so I'm also doing my master's in technological futures. I'm a Flint team lead as well in Auckland. A single parent. I'm also on a 6-week mentoring challenge for women in tech, but I'm not originally tech. So even though I'm in the tech space, I've actually spent the last 20 years in leadership roles in sales, hospitality, customer service in the manufacturing space. And over the last year and a half, I've done that pivot into becoming tech as my career.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate at the moment. We'll have to talk about how you fit that all in later on. Kayla, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Kayla Webster, currently a delivery lead at Mercury Energy within the technology space. And just like you, Nadine, I haven't been in the technology space throughout my whole career as well. So I actually started off in retail, sort of customer service sales type roles, and essentially sort of worked my way into that space, which I'm really passionate about. Again, I'm sort of following that leadership path, which I really enjoy and get a lot of fulfillment out of as well. And very recently kind of branching into a bit of coaching around leadership and wellness as well. I'm also a mother. I have a 3-year-old, and I'm currently expecting another one 1st of July. So,
Oh,
yeah, really,
congrats.
really exciting journey. Thank you. But yeah, also really looking forward to having a chat during this podcast as well.
Amazing. And then just a little bit about me for those that might not have listened to all of the other episodes so far. My name is Caitlin, and I work for Intuito, which is an online learning platform. Like both of the ladies that have spoken before me, I also didn't start in technology. I did human resources at uni and then went into kind of account management, process development roles at a whole bunch of different companies, also a bit of hospo and retail in there as well. And then I ended up, yeah, becoming an account manager for a software company and ended up sticking around in there. And now I work in tech, which is really exciting. So it sounds like there's a bit of parallel between our three career journeys. So the first thing I'd love to know, maybe Kayla, we'll start with you, is what drove you to that career change? I was thinking that, you spent quite a few years doing other things and now you're in tech. So yeah, what prompted that for you?
Yeah, great question. I think for me it was around the changes in the industry. Obviously, tech was becoming more and more prominent. There also wasn't a lot of women in the technology space as well. So for me, it was also kind of like a challenge for myself too. But I think for me, I was sort of thinking about my why, where I wanted to go, sort of long term. I had started, well, essentially, I was coming out from a place which is to do a few life events. I was kind of starting my life again from scratch. So up until that point, I'd sort of been in survival mode, just trying to get through each day, trying to have some sort of a career and just have that job security. But at that point, I was kind of looking for actually what do I want? What is my next step going to be in long term? What does that kind of look like? And so I just thought, IT is essentially becoming part of everything. It's quite broad. You could apply it to any business, like it's going to become an enabler and it's very important. So I thought, why not give that a go? It's very interesting, like the opportunities and essentially the potentials that it could provide. I thought, it was a very interesting space to get into. So at that point, I didn't have any experience or skills in technology. So I was stuck and I was like, how am I actually going to do this? And, it was very overwhelming, a little bit disheartening actually looking at job descriptions, even entry level. It was sort of saying you need X amount of years of experience, you need this many qualifications, and this was just entry level. So I'm going, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Here I am, like my background is retail, sales, customer service, that kind of thing. So, I was at the point where I just didn't know a way forward. I was applying for these jobs. People say, just go for it. You never know, which I was doing, but, just one rejection after another. So I actually remembered back in one of my very first roles, I was on reception. Obviously, a huge part of that is, getting to know people, building relationships, and being the sort of front of the company, I guess, from that view, you do get to know a lot of people and you do make a lot of connections. So being sort of stuck in the place where I was and didn't know what the next steps were, essentially, I decided to kind of reach out to a few leaders that I remembered from my role back then who were in technology leadership roles. I just essentially sent them all a message on LinkedIn. I wasn't really expecting anything back, but like I'm saying, I was kind of desperate, didn't know what to do. And yeah, sent them a message, kind of just described my situation, where I was at, what my goals were, and I just asked for any advice. I was willing to learn anything to help me sort of make that next step or understand what I needed to do to move forward. Out of all the people I sent messages off to, only one of them replied, but that person was actually a CIO at the time that I really respected and looked up to as a leader. Eventually, long story short, he ended up being my mentor. So he started mentoring me for quite a while. We met regularly and had amazing conversations. I learned a lot from him, and obviously it helped me build my confidence. And he kind of showed me, actually, based on what you do have, it's a lot of transferable things and things that you can build on as well. And that kind of gave me a lot of confidence. We didn't just focus on those things as well. Like, we also talked about things that I was struggling with and perhaps holding me back. Like, I was struggling with anxiety. We touched on that during some of our sessions as well. And eventually, after a lot of kind of advice, learning about myself, putting some steps in place based on some of those conversations, I did end up landing an entry-level role into that space. And that was kind of a huge turning point in my career that led me to a lot of other things that sort of happened after that. But for me, I guess that was the approach that I took. And it was all about just putting yourself out there, having a little bit of, I guess, faith or courage to just put yourself out there and reach out to people that you might know, and just build on what you already have. So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Nadine, is your story similar to that, or have you got a completely different approach that you took?
Mine is it's a little bit different. So I'm quite transparent that I'm not young. So my story is I was coming up to being 40. I'd been in leadership roles. I was an executive leader for a company running a customer service team. And I remember coming up to 40 and having a conversation with myself and going, this is life. Like, I'm just going to be a customer service manager. Yes, I got to an executive leadership role within the organization, but I had kind of made the decision in my head, I'm coming up to 40, you can't change your career. Didn't say it out loud, but I had just, I don't know, every time I hit a milestone, like 20, 30, 40, it's like I have this internal conversation with myself. So at the time, I was coming up to 40 and I was working on a project, also implementing Microsoft Dynamics F&O at the same organization. And I was doing my main job, plus I was doing this. And then I actually left the company. So I made the decision. I did what everyone else did after COVID. I went and chased money. So I went, okay, I'm going to stop my customer service role. I'll jump into another organization, chase the money. But I agreed to stay on the implementation project. So spent 7 months working full-time, working on this project. And I worked with a group of guys that were based in Brazil and Colombia, because it was a global company and the IT team was based there. And during that time, I worked with them quite a lot in detail. Probably didn't appreciate it at the time, if I'm honest, like the experience I kind of had sitting in front of me, because I'd had that self-talk. I just said, I'm a customer service manager. Tech is not the industry. I'm too old. I can't switch. So they kept training me, educating me on the system. And I'd actually turn it down. I'd be like, no, why are you showing me this stuff? This is just, I don't want to know this. My job is customer service manager. And then the project went live. And then once it went live, it was actually August 2023. Once that project finished, I was lost. I went back to my customer service role and I was just so unhappy with where I was in life. I couldn't see any career moves for me, and I'm very driven and ambitious. I'd missed that team as well. So working with that team, even though there was language barriers, they were just fantastic to work with. It was just a different feeling working with them. Yes, it had ups and downs, but we worked well. We were working towards a target. Everyone had the same mission and goal. And then once it was gone, I was just lost, didn't know what to do. So rather than sit around and mope about it, I made a 6-month plan. So I went, okay, I'm going to get certified in Microsoft Dynamics fundamentals. So I made a really good effort to do that. Part of that was, even though I'd left the project, I offered to stay on for free. and consult with them on a second part of the project so I could get access to the system to help with my certification. I reinvented myself is the best way to put it. I changed my LinkedIn, my CV, it all spoke about Microsoft Dynamics and wanting to break into that space. And once I did that, I just had recruiters reach out to me and they helped me on the journey, really. In that 6 months, I would just go to an interview and it'd be no lovely personality, great skill, transferable skills, but not quite technical for this role. So I went through a lot of no's, but it was good because it helped me work on those technical skills. So it kind of narrowed down to say, okay, that's what I need to work on, or I need to understand it a little bit more to translate it in an interview. So after 6 months getting certified and going through the lot of no's and using a lot of my personal time just to study, I eventually got a yes. So then worked my way into a business analyst role for an organization in New Zealand. And then I made an effort last year in 2024 because I knew I wanted to get to a functional consultant role. That was my aim in the Microsoft Dynamics space. I just networked and met people, and that just opened up doors for me. And I would just look for any event through LinkedIn, which was free, and just turn up to it. Even when I didn't know people, I still turned up and just kind of met people from that. And that just kind of helped for the next stage, which is this year, where everything just kind of piled on with additional work. So slightly different. It was just, I wish I could go back 2 years and work with that team again and realize the experience I had sitting in front of me, like it's hindsight. But it was still working with a dynamic team with such a great mindset and skill helped me to pivot my career into the tech space.
Amazing. So we're getting really strong themes of getting to know really good people to help you on your journey coming through, which is amazing. I didn't quite have the pivotal moment that the two of you seem to have. My journey into tech was that I kind of fell into it, I guess, was applying for like customer support, account management type roles, and then one that I ended up getting just happened to be at a technology company. It wasn't necessarily a tech role to begin with, is kind of how I see it. I was really just responding to support queries, helping customers. And then as I kind of got used to the product and got more familiar with all of the billions of acronyms that exist in the tech space, I've ended up becoming much more in the product area. I work really closely with our development team now. Talk to partners about integrations and all that jazz. So it's definitely gone from what I see as a quite a generic support kind of customer focused role into one that's much more in the tech space. And I still feel a little bit weird saying I work in tech because it's not really something I ever strived to do necessarily. And I run customer success. It's not like I'm a developer or in organization ops or anything like that. But I think the joy for me is that in such a small company you wear so many hats, and so even though I manage the customer side of things, I really do get to be in the tech focused area as well, which is kind of perfect for me. I like to say I translate between our developers and our customers. So that's always really fun trying to figure out what the developers are saying when they use a lot of words that I don't know what they mean.
It's so funny, Caitlin. I can really relate to that because it's funny we're saying like we work in tech, but I'm also not technical as well. And I feel like, way back when I first made that decision, I really want to work within tech in the technology space. I didn't know actually exactly what I wanted to do in that space, having not been exposed to it before. I just didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know what the options were. And I wasn't technical either, but I just knew I wanted to kind of get amongst it and be in that space because it was super exciting. And now, like when we talk about being in tech, it's kind of like I feel like technology is so embedded into every organization. Like it's
Yeah.
not a tech company, like every business essentially is technology, like it's run by technology. It's such an enabler. I feel like you kind of can't do business without it these days. So, like although I'm saying I'm in the technology space, I've worked in that department, but my roles have kind of been within the business analyst area, and sort of leadership roles or scrum mastering, delivery leads, like those sort of roles within technology. But again, like you're talking about, developers will be having technical
Yeah.
conversation. It's still over my head, and I don't know what they're talking about. But I love just being in that environment and knowing that what you're delivering is something really meaningful, and something that really contributes to really valuable end results. But it doesn't mean to say that I'm very technical, and it's taken me a long time to actually realize what I want to do within that space. Like I said, I've been through various roles within technology, and through just those experiences I've realized some of them haven't been for me, or they haven't quite given me that fulfillment or satisfaction that I've been looking for, until I've kind of stumbled across a small leadership side within the technology space, where I've really kind of cemented, actually, yes, this is what I really am passionate about, and this really gives me that sort of purpose. But it's been, I guess, like I've had this, I guess you could call it, guiding star, that I've wanted to be in the technology space, and I want to do something really meaningful in that. And I've kind of kept that in the front of my mind, this whole time while I've been in my journey. And I think that's helped me with some of these decisions that I've made in terms of career choices and various roles that I've applied for. It's kind of helped navigate through some of those situations.
Nadine, did you want to add to that? It looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, mine is just I agree with both of you about developers, and because I'm in the same kind of position as all of you, I'm the dealing with clients and then dealing with the developers. So yeah, and the acronyms, as soon as you brought that up, Caitlin, like just switching and all these acronyms come up and you're just going, what does that mean? And you have to ask the question to
Yeah.
kind of understand it, because in your head, like for example, one project I was on, they had PC, and I was like, well, you're not talking about a computer. So what does it stand for? And they were like, fair call, because you're coming into a whole new project, you wouldn't have understood what it was. So, but that's where I also add value as well. I think because I've come from that customer service, sales, leadership role, I just work well in that little bubble space with the client plus with the developers. I just know how to kind of communicate both directions, also know how to sell. So I can get passionate when you have to deliver from a sales perspective, but also can kind of read the room and tone it down when I have to. And I think it's because of that customer service, because you're aware that complaints can come, so you've got to walk on that fine line of don't push too much, because complaints sometimes can make it worse, and it's finding that middle ground. But I believe all of us have made that pivot because we've got transferable skills, which are the people skills and probably the problem solving skills.
Yeah, those transferable skills are something that's so important, even if you're just moving from job to job within the same industry, but definitely coming into technology. Like that's why I was hired essentially at the tech company that, I had nothing on the tech side, but they didn't care about that because they knew, okay, the technical stuff we can teach, but it's the personality traits, it's the being comfortable talking to groups of people, it's the being confident presenting something that you may not 100% understand, but you've got the smarts to figure it out as you go along. That you can't really teach those things. Like they are quite inherent personality traits. Either a person is a people person or they're not a people person.
Yeah, agreed.
You can say, cool, I'll give you some tips on how to have a conversation, but they're still going to struggle walking into a room of people that they don't know. Um, and so I think that's also a really important thing when we're talking about transitioning careers. You might have found that some of those fits, Kayla, were because your personality didn't quite fit in the super analytical role, or,
Yeah.
the being stuck in a spreadsheet all day kind of vibe, which definitely isn't me,
Yes.
but my ops manager loves that. If I
Yeah.
get the spreadsheet, it's like makes his week. Um, whereas,
Yes.
I'll
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah.
I'll do what I need in a spreadsheet, but I don't want to be in there for more than like 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah,
Yes, actually, that's exactly it. So I was in a role where I was a digital consultant, but some of that involved a bit of analytical type work. A lot of it, the other side of that was kind of project management. And I really enjoyed that side. The analytical side of things was good for like my learning and development. But my next role after that, although I had the same job title, it was essentially only focusing on the analytical side of things. So I was just day in, day out analyzing data and, doing like that typical digital analyst role. And I realized very quickly that it was something I wasn't passionate passionate about, and I wasn't actually very good at either.
Yeah.
Despite, like being on this journey to learn and give it my all and do my best, I just realized over time this really isn't for me, and I really missed that kind of the people side of things and the delivery side of things as well. And that was another, again, a turning point for me where I realized this particular role that I'm in right now is not the career that I want to build. And that led me to looking elsewhere and looking for my next step where I could get back to that more of the people side, still within that technology space as we've talked about, but looking for those different aspects that were giving me a bit more fulfillment from my role. And then that led me to my next role from there. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you gave some really good insight. So a few people recently, like, because everyone expects there's like a magic wand and that you're just going to go, this is what you're going to do in tech and you're going to love it.
Yes. Yeah.
So a few people have just said, how did you know that you wanted to be a functional consultant? And it was the project I worked on. There was a functional consultant. I saw what he did and I went, that's what I want to do. That's my strength. I'm not a coder. I'm not the technical person, but I liked what he did and how he presented himself. So that kind of gave me that vision. But I also knew I didn't want to be a business analyst, but I knew it was a good stepping stone to get into that tech space. So similar to what you did is you've kind of actually got to dip your feet in, even if it's not what you want to do. But if you're trying to transition your career, how are you going to know if it's what you want to do or not want to do? You kind of have to, I wouldn't say a risk, but you kind of have to at least try. And I mean, the only reason you'd not do it is if your gut says to you and you go to the interview and then something's 100% not right, like the culture doesn't fit with you, but you've got to just try and see, because I don't want to take a big risk and then put my family at risk and not be able to pay my bills, but
Yes.
I
Yeah.
still needed to dip my feet in and see, am I doing the right thing at 40, pivoting my career to get into tech? So I think people just expect, they want to do it right the first time. Well, guess what? You
Yes.
might make a few mistakes, but at least then I'm passionate about this and I
Mm-hmm.
don't enjoy this. So I go down what I enjoy more, because I'm the same as you guys. Give me a spreadsheet. And if I had to sit there and analyze data all day,
Yeah.
like, don't mind doing it as part of my job, but not the whole day. Like, I need
Yeah.
different variety, different things, interaction with people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean, the main thing is a few people, students I've talked to recently, they've said, like, they've been actually in finance and they're like, oh, I'm thinking IT. And I said, well, just do online courses. Like, look at
Yeah.
Microsoft Learn, look at Amazon Web Services, look at IBM. All these big companies offer free learning. You may have to pay a couple $100 to do an exam if you want to go further, but go that route rather than trying to do an IT degree, because do you really want to you've spent 3 years studying and then another 3 years to find out it's not what you want to do? So that's kind of the advice I say to people, is that, life can't be perfect all the time and you can't have it planned out. And the
Yeah.
whole part of that career change is you just got to go in and see what you like and what you don't like, and
Yeah.
don't fear it, because it's just going to help you have that drive and motivation to find what you want. I think sometimes people need that because otherwise they get stuck and comfortable. And that's not what I'm saying. It's not that you have to be stuck and comfortable, but develop yourself enough or have some insight on yourself to kind of say, this is not me. I need to pivot again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's even advice that I would give to someone that has just finished a degree and is going into their own field as well. Like, talking about someone that's just done a finance degree, there's so many different roles in that industry that unless they've already got a lot of mentor type people that are working there, they're not going to have any idea what specific role is going to suit them best. And especially when you're starting in a new industry, even if that's what you have studied, you kind of have to get in the weeds a little bit. Not necessarily to prove yourself, but kind of. Because no one's going to hire you for a big fancy role if you don't have a background kind of in that space to back it up. I was talking to some of my team earlier this week because I've been invited to this event and it said it was, for industry professionals. And I was like, am I one of those? But then I think, okay, I've been running a team for, 3 and a bit years now. So maybe I am at that space, but it's such a gradual increase in kind of what I've done, and you get a few years older and then all of a sudden people are asking you for your advice instead of the other way around, and it's something that happened so gradually that I think a lot of people expect it from the start. And it wasn't something I expected at all. But now apparently I am a professional in the tech space. And it's mind-blowing to me because I'm like, I never set out to do this. And it's just over the time, yeah, I've done online courses. We use HubSpot. So I've done a bunch of learning on there. I've done LinkedIn learning stuff. I've done like mini coding courses so I know how to use HTML when the customers ask me for it. And then you just build up those skills over time. And I don't think that's something that you could do without really being somewhere in the industry because you need that practical experience as well, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you tapped onto something that is really important. It's that self-talk and that confidence. Like you said, you don't think you're a professional in this space. I mean, I got invited to speak on a panel last week for Auckland University, and I just go, I've only been in this space for a year and a half. I don't see myself as a tech expert. But I've started to realize for me, it's not the tech they want to hear. It's the how did I change careers? How did I make that decision? How do I balance everything that I do because I'm working and studying part-time? So people want to know the real stories from
Yeah.
people. And it is like, I think in the past, like people say imposter syndrome. I just say it's confidence. Like
Yeah.
I lacked confidence because I wasn't around the right people that were building me up. They had this way of thinking, and then I started thinking like that. But ever since kind of switching my career and kind of switched who I've been around, because that's one of the challenges, you're going to lose people on this journey, because you want to have the people that they don't have to be in tech, but they've got to have your back and they've got to support you on your journey, even if they think you're being nuts, but it just is going to give you that motivation. And I think that's where a lot of, especially women, we just kind of say, oh no, we're not good. We can't do that. And I mean, I've always been in male dominant industries as a leader, but I still wanted to prove a point. I'm like, just because I'm female, I can still run a team and run it really well and show good leadership skills. It doesn't matter if I'm female or male. I can still do it and make this company money. So you just put on a point that we have the self-talk where we don't think we're good enough. And that's where I'm really trying to drive it with other women in the industry, that what's the worst that can happen if you say no or don't go to an event is nothing, right? Your life doesn't change, but then it could open up doors for you. So it's about really thinking about the opportunities it can convert for you in the future, or like the career it can open or the doors it can open.
Yeah. 100% agree with that. Like I've always struggled with confidence my whole life. It's taken me a long time to build that up. And I think so it is very important to have, even if it's just a couple of people, even one person who's in your court who kind of believes in you and has that faith in you to help build you up, especially in those times when you have a lot of that self-doubt and things like that. I remember being encouraged for so long, go to networking events, you really need to, it's key, it's going to make such a difference. But I'm quite introverted, and for me, it's thinking about being in a huge room full of professionals who I would think are way above me, and what am I going to be doing there? Like, will everybody be looking at me and asking in their heads, why is she here? But I actually found a great networking event that I went to for the first time. They actually focus on having real conversations about the person. So it's all about putting the role to the side and focusing on having a conversation with the person behind the suit, they kind of say. And actually, they have rules as well. Like, the first three questions that you ask when you're talking to a person can't be about their role or what they do for work. It has to be about them as a person. So actually, after I'd been to a few of those events where I felt like an equal. I felt like I did belong there, could be there like everybody else. I think that really helped build my confidence and my communication in that kind of setting. And of course, my network. I think, like you said, Nadine, you just never know what you might learn from someone or what door could open for you just from simply having a meaningful conversation with another person. So I think that for me really helped. And that's given me confidence to go to other events, and has helped me build connections with people that have given me a lot of advice or helped me in one way or another, and vice versa as well. And I think just hearing the real stories behind people, not just what you see every day at face value. I think understanding the journeys that some people have been on makes you realize actually everyone has a story, everyone has a background. We've all been through various things to get to where we are now, and it makes you feel like your story also matters, and you're just like anybody else. We're all people, we all have our own experiences or influences that we've had in our lives to get us to where we are now. And we're all just on a journey following whatever it is that is driven by our why, or whatever gives us meaning or purpose in our lives. So I think to me, that's really been an eye-opener for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we touched on the networking and the going to the events and things, and then that's essentially how we've ended up all on this call today. I mean, Nadine
Mhm.
started coming along to some of our Flint events, so that's how we met, and then has now joined the Flint team. And Kheila, you and Hassana, I think it was,
Yes.
connected on LinkedIn, and then I got an email saying, "Oh, Kheila will be great for the podcast." And then here we are, and like, even me with this podcast, I didn't even start it. A couple of the other guys in the Flint team did. And then I just joined to be a third voice. And now here we are all having this conversation together because we all took that chance and made that connection or went to the event or said hello to that person that we'd seen the face of a couple of times before. And I think that connection is such a beautiful thing. And look, now we've all tied in our stories and seen so many parallels to share with the listeners that might be thinking, oh, how can we do this as well? So yeah, what we might do now, because we have been talking for a little while, is kind of go into maybe final advice for people that might be looking at doing that switch or might be mid-switch and struggling a little bit. So Kheila, if you want to start with what you might say, even if it's directed at your former self, whatever you want to
Mm.
phrase it like.
Yeah. No, sure. So I think for me, being aware of how you're feeling and not forgetting where you're going and why as well. And I guess for me, there's two parts. So I think it's really easy to get caught up in work and operating in autopilot due to just this modern way of life that we've created. And we often forget to sort of check in with ourselves and often only realize how we're feeling or that change is really needed when it really hits us hard. And it's almost not too late, but it's almost like you're at a critical point when you really need to make change. So I think having regular check-ins with ourselves are quite essential to ensuring that whatever we're doing is contributing to our well-being from like a place of adding that purpose and fulfillment to our lives instead of taking away from it. And those regular check-ins can give us a sense of how we're feeling as to whether it's a complete career change that's needed, or perhaps just some slight tweaks, or maybe reaching out for some support it's needed. The other side of that is, I think the other thing that's important is not losing sight of your dreams and why. As I mentioned, so they should kind of act as like your guiding star, so reminding of us of where we're going and why, and ensuring that we kind of remain on that right path. And that's not to say that that path is a straight line. In fact, probably 99.99% of the cases, it's more like a typical rural road that you might find, full of bumps and turns as we face obstacles and challenges that life will throw at us. And sometimes that happens all at once, but we always learn and we grow from those. And you can sort of use that dream or that why that you have to help take the next steps out of those situations. Sometimes at the time, those next steps might not feel right or they might not make sense, but then you'll often find, well, in my case anyway, I found over time those things, when I look back, they sort of make sense, or I understand why those have happened, and it actually helps things fall into place in the long term. And I guess lastly, for anyone who doesn't have a dream or doesn't know your why, I really encourage you to dig deep and have the courage to dream big, no matter what it is. And I know it sounds cliche, but I'm so far from where I once was. And it's all thanks to, I guess, having a dream and keeping it in sight for me. And it was a big dream. And sometimes even for myself, I really doubted it, but constantly reminding myself of my why, especially during hard times, how far I had come, and then constantly just learning, taking those small steps towards I felt like what was the right direction has kind of been everything for me. So yeah, I think that's what I would probably finish on.
So Nadine?
Um, with similar, I had why as well.
Yeah.
So my why has always been my son. So I've been a solo parent all the way through with my son. So he's always been my why, and it's not fitting, like stepping out of the stereotype, right? If I can do it, anyone can do it. And I had a lot of family support. So I didn't get here without them, because being a single parent, they had to help me when I went to university and worked long hours to get to where I want to be. So I 100% agree on the why. Like everyone's why is different, but my son has always been my motivation, because I want him to have the best life that's there available. And I didn't want to miss opportunities where if he wants or needs something, or wherever he wants to go, that I wasn't able to provide for him. So he's always been my why. I just thought I'd give an example of why I think why is so important, because I always think back to when I have a bad day, why am I doing this? I want to see him happy. I want to see him grow up and be successful. This is why I'm doing it. The other one, couple I had was listen. listen is such a great skill to have. And I find being in meetings or being around people and with the networking is actually actively listening and taking in what people are saying is such a great skill. I think as you go up the management chain, people forget to actively listen and take in what people were saying. So I think it's a real strength if people can really listen when they're talking to someone and relay it back, because it's, you just don't know the little gems you're going to miss in that conversation if you're not paying attention. My other one is read the room. So it kind of ties in with that listening, is kind of change your approach or look at how you do things with someone, especially when it comes to networking, because you may have said something or personality came out or they didn't understand you. So I always find reading the room is quite a good one. And I called it reflect as well. So I'm really good. I would rather go away and think about a situation and look at it from both perspectives. What did I do well? What did I do bad? How was the other person and how was that situation? So I always go away and think about how things could be done better from both parties. Not that the other party's going to change, because you can say, hey, they should have done X, Y, Z. That really frustrated me, but you can't change it. But at least you're aware that next time you go into something. But I do it for myself for a learning perspective. So it kind of leads into the learning as well. If you're not open to take on your own, not self-judgment, but at least have a conversation with yourself and go, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should have said it this way. And then maybe the meeting might have been different, or the networking conversation I had with someone seemed a bit off, but maybe I could have said this rather than that. So I think really looking at how you deal with things or how you speak and that you can pivot and change is crucial to your career, and that it leads into the learning. Because if you're going into a new industry, you've got to be open to learn and don't take things personally, because you don't know what you don't know. Someone's giving you advice. It's not that they're putting you down, but it's just that you're in that learning phase. So you don't know everything, but you want to know everything. So you've got to be hungry for that learning, and the only way you're going to learn is also that self-reflection, and that you can kind of say, what can I do? How can I do it better? Even you're going to learn a lot too. So if you're learning a lot, what approach do you take to kind of write things down and take note of them? And then it leads into my last point, which is rejection. Like changing career and going to interviews, you're going to face rejection. You're going to face, no, you're not technical enough. You don't have this. Or reaching people on LinkedIn, networking, same thing. Like, yeah, okay, someone might say no, or it doesn't work out. I always use it as motivation. I never took it personally. It happened for a reason. The universe was trying to tell me something, and that's why it wasn't working. So I always went away and looked at it and went, it was a no because of XYZ. Either I need to work on XYZ, and I need to change, or it just wasn't the right fit. So I always try and say to people, I know it sucks. No one wants to hear no, but it's also a blessing sometimes. Like you've just got to kind of look at the universe and say, why did it happen? Maybe it was for a good reason, but how do I also pivot and change so I can turn the next one into a yes?
On that note, we will wrap it up here. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us. And now that you've got all of these amazing tips for how to turn those no's into yeses, I'm just going to run through a couple of upcoming Flint events. So for all of you people in Auckland, Christchurch, and Wellington, the next Flint event is actually tomorrow by the time this episode comes out. You may have heard me mention it before. You've probably already seen them all over LinkedIn. But in Auckland, we have our What Do Future Careers Look Like event. So really important to this topic that we're just been talking about, actually. It's all about the upcoming technology changes that are going to create new career paths and the different skills and growth points that are needed for you as an individual to gain access to those careers. Then we've got the Wellington event, which is about standing out in the job market. So again, quite relevant to the conversation we've just had. That one's going to be an awesome conversation with two of our Flint team leads, actually, about how to adjust your CV, how to kind of market yourself in the best way possible to get those jobs that you might be applying for. So how to turn those no's into yeses, like we've just been talking about. And then we have a Christchurch event all about harnessing AI tools for work efficiency and career growth. So that's something that we've all on this conversation probably have had to do, learn about AI, learn how to use it in our roles. So that event's going to be really cool. It's going to be a panel discussion with industry professionals talking about exactly how AI can be used to help your career and its growth. And then later on in May in Queenstown, we have a really cool tech show and tell happening. I know Queenstown have done one of these towards the end of last year, I believe, that went down really well. So pretty much if you're in Queenstown and you're working on some really cool technology stuff, there's 6 spots open, I think, for you to go and share what you're working on, talk to your peers about it, get some feedback, help each other out with ideas. And if you're just in Queenstown and you want to hear about some cool stuff, you can go along without anything to share and just hear what everybody else has to say. So that one is on the 22nd of May. So you've got a little bit of time to register and make sure you've got a spot for that as well. And yeah, thank you both of you, Nadine and Kheila, for joining me today. This conversation has been amazing and has provided some really valuable and practical insights to our listeners about finding a new job, pivoting careers, even, how to improve your own job, the one that you're doing right now through self-improvement and networking and all of the different things that we've touched on. So I just want to say a big thank you to both of you so much for joining me. And yeah, if you've got any last words, now's your chance.
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation and thank you for having me.
And mine is just do it. What's the worst that can happen? I'm just going to take Nike's slogan and say, just do it, just jump in. And if not, reach out to us on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure between us, if you need some guidance or because we like the leadership and mentoring and we understand these struggles, 100% just reach out and message us through LinkedIn and we can give you some guidance on how to do the pivot change.
Perfect. If you are listening to this on the podcast apps or if you're watching it on YouTube, we'll make sure that we're all tagged below so that you can reach out if you want to. Otherwise, make sure to follow FLINT Talks so you can tune in to our next episode. See you later.